That one. Okay. Okay, thank you. Right, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's meeting. This is a public meeting and members of the public and press are permitted to report on the proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photographing, making an audio recording and providing commentary on proceedings. Please note this meeting is recorded and streamed live. These recordings are published on the relevant meeting page of the Council's website. By choosing to attend this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to being filmed or recorded and for any footage to be broadcast or published. If the alarm sounds, the premises must be evacuated immediately. Please do not spend time collecting personal belongings. All emergency escape routes are clearly signed. Once you have left the building, the assembly point is on the High Street opposite the Guildhall. Members and other speakers are reminded. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to the first Environment Committee meeting since the election. This is a policy committee formed of 11 councillors, and we actually have 5 new faces, so I thought it was worthwhile welcoming you. We've got Councillor Hannah Cooper, Councillor Andrew Cross, Councillor Atif Sadiq, Councillor Sue Smith, and we've also got Councillor Jessie Jagger, who will in a minute. I'd also, sorry? And Councillor Lena Round is a substitute, so Lloyd for Marjorie Bissett. I'd like to take this opportunity to express this committee's condolences to the family and friends and colleagues of Councillor Cronin. This was a committee where he made a very valuable contribution. Those who can. As we have new councillors, I'd also quickly like the officers, please.
Thank you, Chair. Lloyd Griffiths, I'm Corporate Director for Operations, Homes and Communities.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Sandra Green, Head of City Services. So we've got bereavement, street enforcement, fleet and environment.
David Sutton, I'm Deputy Director for Corporate Policy and Strategy. Sustainability that I'll be
And hello, my name is Ruth Correll. I'm now Sustainability Team Leader with a team, Claire and Becky in my team, working with David.
Oh, very much. And I'd also like to welcome Zoe. Zoe is the new Vice Chair of the committee, and we'll be working together to make real progress. Are there any substitutes, please?
Yes, Chair, we have Councillor Alcott for Councillor Jagger and Councillor Round for Councillor Bissett. Thank you.
Do we have any declarations of interest? Thank you, Owen. Okay, so we've got some public participation. In 2020, the City Council declared a biodiversity emergency and recognised the action needed to be taken immediately to stop the decline of our native species. And one of the actions was to work in partnership with local groups such as the WEG. So I'd like to welcome Paul Snooks, who is speaking tonight about the grass verges, I believe, in the city and their management.
Yeah. Just first, I'd like to thank the committee for the financial help we had for creating the Wildabout Worcester Way, the 12-mile wildlife corridor around the city. It's been unbelievably successful. On the launch day, we said there might be 5 to 50 people. There were, I think, about 200. It was crazy, and we're just constantly getting information on social media about people getting out there and getting in touch with nature. So we're really appreciative of the support that you gave us to create that 12-mile. And there's an exhibition at the Hive at the moment of the children's artwork, primary school artwork, that's been carved on many of the wooden posts, about 70 carvings all around the route. And you can go out and hunt with your children and grandchildren and find all those images. As Councillor Lewin said, I've come to talk about the verges. We were asked last year by the officers with the Wildlife Trust and ourselves, Worcester Environmental Group, to meet with some of the operatives to talk to them about, I think the word was training, to help them manage the verges more for wildlife. Some of that information doesn't seem to have got through yet to the operatives, and we've had a conversation today about that with Mark Bayliss and Sandra, and I understand that's going to be sorted. One of the we were trying to move in the incremental steps, and one of the suggestions was to leave a meter at the base of all the hedges where the verges are, when it didn't impede passage or safety and so forth, and that's been rather patchy. Some in 1 or 2 places it's been done, but in a lot of places it hasn't. So I think that's something of concern. I don't really understand why that hasn't happened. I think it was three years ago, we ran a webinar with, and Mark Bayliss was there, and there were county council people, about a very successful project in Dorset, where they manage their verges for wildlife. They basically mimic what happened from over many generations of hay meadows, collecting the hay at the end of the summer, taking it away. The fertility of the soil, this is the paradox, the fertility of the soil drops, and that's where the native hay meadow wildflowers flourish. So if you cut and take away, and the Worcester City Council now has 2 cut and collect machines where the grass can be cut and taken away, and that replicates. We've lost 97% of those hay meadows since the end of the Second World War, and Britain's one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world, according to United Nations. So one of the places that has been cut and collected now for 3 years is Old Akenbury Orchard in Warndon Villages. 3 years ago, it was up to your neck in coarse grass. I made a video the other day, put it on Twitter and other social media. We normally get 10, 15 likes. There were 630 likes. It was shared 150 times, viewed about 25,000 times all over the world. And I'd like to, if we're going to see if this is going to work, to show you this little 1-minute video clip. This is what all of our verges could look like if we did this cut and collect regime. And I'll go into in a little bit of detail after we see the video. Have we lost it? If you go back to the beginning there of that one, drag it to the, yeah, I'll restart the bottom left. Yeah.
Look, there's no grass here right now. This is a meadow full of the record. Absolutely, just this is just believe that we're surrounded by houses. Funny story for you. We had a corporate group come, about 20 people, and they pulled up over here. We're in the middle of the town. I think we're in the wrong place. We're surrounded by houses, the hospital just over here, and roads. Not the honeybee. Absolutely, absolutely.
Excuse my frothing at the mouth enthusiasm, but that's how all our verges could look if we adopted what they're doing in Dorset, where all of the verges are cut and collected regularly. And if that was done over the next 4 or 5 years, even 3 years, you saw the result there, that would mean you'd only need to cut the grass once or twice a year. It would massively, it would save a lot of money, it would save carbon, and it would look like that. Nothing there has been planted. It was literally coarse grass. And I just want to finish with one last thing, because Karen's waving a thing at me. This is about us, ultimately. The planet's going to be fine. It's going to be absolutely fine in a few 100,000 years, but I'd like us to be here with it. And that's what this is all about.
Thank you, Paul. I think that's an absolutely wonderful video, and I encourage everybody to take a walk on the new route around the city and appreciate it. We've had some great weather recently, actually, and it just looks great with the blue sky, doesn't it? Thank you very much. Okay, for members who were at the committee in March, can we just go through the minutes, please? If I go through it page by page, if we start with page 1, page 2.
Chair, I just, oh, by the way, congratulations on your appointment as chair. But page 2, Mecca Memorial Nature Park, yes. Can you officers just confirm the progress with this? I know significant work has taken place over the last few weeks. Have we actually submitted a request to council yet for the extra £30,000, which I think is still needed to complete the work, and whether that's going to be forthcoming with further development on the site?
Chair, I'm aware the additional money has been approved. There's no issue with the additional money, and we'll have to provide a written response in terms of progress by way of update. We can do that to Councillor Udall this week.
I appreciate a lot of the work is seasonal, so it will be staggered over a long time, but it's certainly something which should be celebrated when it's completed, and I look forward to that.
we go to page 3. 4. So now we've got the next agenda item is the electric vehicle charging strategy.
So I'll present the report. Ruth's here to answer any difficult technical questions that you may have. Council's made a fair bit of progress on EV charging in recent years. The works at St Martin's Gate in particular, and some more works planned. Strategy that's before you tonight will guide our further work in this area, and really importantly put us in a good position with regard to grant funding bids and accessing external funding. It's very important to have a strategy that underpins bids and applications that we make. Back in 2019, July 2019, the council declared a climate emergency and committed the council to taking action to reduce. Our strategy, environmental sustainability strategy, sets out policies to achieve this overarching ambition to be carbon neutral by 2030. But for context, carbon emissions from transport account for around just under a third of the total carbon emissions in the city. 20. You'll be aware that the government is backing electric vehicles as a solution to reducing these emissions. So supporting and accelerating where possible this transition to electric vehicles is an important component in the strategy that's this report. You'll be aware that there's, well, new members may not be so aware, there's a provision in the capital programme of £200,000 potential borrowing to install more EV charge points. Council car parks, 58,000 of this has been, just over 58,000 has been committed already. Charge points in Tallow Hill and at King Street, and that work's ongoing. We hope to see those towards the end. There was a large grant of match funding, government's on-street residential charging scheme, Dorks. Scope of the strategy, it covers all types of plug-in cars, taxis, light good vehicles, including pure battery and hybrid vehicles. This strategy is not aimed at HGVs and motorbikes, although electric motorbikes will be able to use the infrastructure that we've put in. Primarily focused on our own land, where we have the ability to make those changes, but there's also a focus on working with stakeholders, so other providers, partners of county council, a role to play in this area. Installation of any on-street EV structure would lie with the county councils, the lead transport authority, with responsibility for highways. We continue to work closely with colleagues at the county to identify further opportunities for providing charging as close to residential areas, particularly those that don't have access to private driveway charging. Section 4, there's some figures there for you around how many electric vehicles we expect to have in the city based on national figures by 2025. Far away, that's around 7,600, which would be of the number of registered vehicles in the city, rising quite swiftly really to 27,000 by 2030. So by that time we would need 682 chargers. That's a considerable jump up from where we are at the moment in terms of context, but what we're looking to do in this strategy is to take the first steps on that road really. So a dozen or so chargers and some more proposed at the moment. There's a long way to go, but we're get ahead of the game on that. The strategy has some overarching objectives, and then underpinning those are some principles around infrastructure and principles around location, installing chargers. A third of households in the city don't have a private driveway, so EV charging for those households that have vehicles will be reliant on public charging or private charging facilities. vision in the strategy is that all residents will have access to charging within 10 minutes walk of their home by 2030. Clearly, there's a long way to go there, and it'll depend on funding and working with other partners as to how that can be provided. Done quite a bit of work around accessibility of charge points. Nationally, there was some publicity around this, really making sure that disabled users are able to access the charge point itself, so weight of charging cables, sometimes vehicle barriers and bollards around the structure, whilst put in for good reason, can be productive abilities. Also within the strategy, a principle that installation and operation is on a sound financial business case, where that there is an open market in EV charging, service stations, some supermarkets. So the principle in the strategy that this will have to be on. At the moment, to make a financial business case, external funding is a key part of that business case. That's what's underpinned charges in Hill and in King Street, which will continue to seek external funding which is available. Roberts, did you want to ask a question?
Thank you. I give the officer warning of this question, and he said he would start by, I thank the councillor for his question, which actually, for any new members, means exactly the opposite. But I'm still going to plough on. The first thing is just to make sure we all know what we're saying yes to, which, this is fine. It's government policy for everyone, so it's fine. But the one thing we are saying yes to is that we welcome vehicles in the city, and we go as far as to say out to the wide world in general, please come here because we can get you charged here, so we want more vehicles. Now, I think that's fine. To get visitors to the city, I think it's absolutely fine, but I think we should be conscious of that. And the other thing we should be conscious of, when we're talking about, and David will be able to give us some information on this, which I'm sure will help. But when we're talking about carbon neutral, there are two levels of responsibility, I think. That's, the one is us as members of society, etc., etc. And the other is us as councillors and part of a council. The measures that have been suggested here are enabling measures. They don't do anything to reduce our carbon footprint. Now, there are measures we could take, and there's lots of authorities in this country and in Scotland, funnily enough, they're doing just that, particularly looking at how they're fueling their waste collection vehicles. Now, the reason I say this is by saying great to these EV chargers, we shouldn't become complacent. I think we've done our bit, because we haven't done our bit at all, actually. We've allowed, it's almost like offsetting, we've allowed other people to do their bit. And we've still got some way to go, I think. Does that sound like a lecture, David? I'm sorry if it does, but I'm sure you'll have a good answer.
Yeah. Can everybody else wait till the end of the officer report, please?
Shall I pick Councillor Robinson's point up?
Yes,
now?
I think
But certainly an objective of the strategy is to make Worcester a welcoming and accessible place for people with EVs, so that it will be a place where you will be able to come and charge and convenient. This strategy doesn't talk about our own fleet and our own, so there's a lot of work going on with that. The majority, I think, the majority of our small goods vehicles now are EV. There's been a charger in the Guildhall car park for some time that the city centre team have been using. We have trialled an electric refuse collection vehicle. That technology is starting to come on board. I think the range that we have here, just with our unique circumstances, made that not quite viable at the moment. We're waiting for a bit of battery, a bigger battery size. But it's something that Sandra's team and Ruth's team are working hard on as well, so we haven't lost sight of that. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Just a word for the future. Will we be looking at our own fleet of vehicles and how they're fueled?
Yeah, absolutely. And the ambition is that we would be running electric refuse collection vehicles, which will be, that is our major use of carbon, really, is the fleet at the moment. Hopefully within the next 3 to 5 years, that technology is available, built into our capital programme for our next round of vehicles. One of the other principles is around 24/7 access. So we're also looking to support businesses that work through the night, and our taxi fleet in particular. And some of our locations will be quite helpful for our taxi fleet. And members will be aware that some of our land close to the river is subject to flooding, so that won't be looked at for electricity at the moment. And also places with no height restrictions, so we're not just limiting it to vehicles that So I think what I'm going to do is thank you for that. I'll commend the strategy to the committee, and I'm happy to take questions.
At the moment, I've got Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to first of all congratulate the officers doing a fantastic job with this report. It tells us a lot, and they've done a fantastic work to the best of their ability, but it's not helped with one arm tied behind your backs by the County Council, who are one of the only county councils anywhere in the UK who still do not permit on-street curbside charging machines. And that's got to end if we're going to actually increase and improve provision of electric charging anywhere in this city. There are plenty of ways to do it, including cable gullies sunk into the highway at residential request, at residential expense, which can enable this to happen safely. But we continue to say no, which means we continue to prevent the proper expansion of electric vehicles in this city. And I do fear for the future. I've been campaigning and suggesting for some time that we should work towards an electric-only taxi fleet by 2030. We can't set that timetable because we can't realistically expect taxi drivers to park a £50,000 taxi in St Martin's Gate car park overnight in order for it to be charged. They've got to be able to do it at home. And the biggest problem we have, and looking at my own area, St John's, 2,000 people within 5-minute walk of St John's Church haven't got off-street parking. So we'll have no access to have electric charging machines. We've got to have curbside charging machines available to the public, and until we do, we're not going to move very far with this. So I do seek clarification from our officers. How far can we push our county council to change their ridiculous policy, to move forward into the 21st century and start being helpful to the consumers who want to choose electric vehicles and not ignoring them?
I would say is that at officer level, we do work closely with our colleagues at the County Council in highways and in sustainability on a number of areas. Clearly, County Council policy is a matter for the County Council and not for officers of the city. But we will continue to work with those officers, and you will see within the strategy that we are aiming to mitigate to some degree the issues that Councillor raises. But I absolutely take his point that he makes about households being able to charge directly outside.
I'm thinking aloud, and you may tell me off for doing so, which is often done when I do think aloud. But I think it's time, we've heard this several times, every time we have a discussion about electric vehicles, I say this, and the officers say what they've just said. I think it's time we took this forward. And I suggest that we could actually move a slight amendment to the recommendation in front of us, which is to ask you and your Vice Chair to make personal contact with the portfolio holder in charge of highways and transportation at County Hall, have a meeting, to ask for a meeting with them to explain the necessities here that we do need to have change. Unless we start putting direct pressure on them, nothing's going to happen.
I don't think that necessarily needs an amendment to the report, Chair. That's something that's within the gift of you and the Chair and the Vice Chair to do anyway. And as David has said, you know, what happens on a highway is a matter for County Council. So fine line to tread between strain into statutory territory.
I'll ask you to have an undertaking to consider having such a request and making such a request to the County Council and to try and meet with them to try and bring home to them the problems
Yeah.
which we've discussed.
I'll be very happy to do that, Councillor Udall. I'd also like to request from city councillors who sit on the city council, who are also county councillors, that they do their part as well, lobbying on our behalf. Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Alcott, please.
Yeah, thank you, and congratulations on your appointment. Yeah, I would just like to echo Richard's comments. Obviously, I know myself from being at county with motions, there were many things we've tried to do, and we are doing the best we can, but with a very large Conservative administration at county, all of our motions are either amended, but we will continue to fight.
Thank you, Councillor Alcott. I think your efforts are appreciated. If everyone carries on, I'm afraid I think you will have to keep going again and again and again. But, you know, we should get there, I hope. Councillor Cleary?
Thanks, Chair. It was just an addition to the answer that was given to Councillor Roberts' question a minute ago. I was at the discussion when we talked about the electric bin lorries and whatnot. I can't remember if it was here or if it was communities. I think it was here, though, wasn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And just for those councillors that weren't aware of that, we were quite keen on this, but the cost was astronomical. We had no understanding of what the range of these vehicles was. Some of them were too big to get down the city streets. Mechanics didn't know how to use these machines. Had what I would call a subject matter expert sat here telling us about it, who was the guy that's in charge of all of the bin lorries in the city. So we had to demur to what we were being told. And it's a 3, 4, 5 year plan, whatever it was, I can't remember, but it couldn't be done at the time, just for those councillors that weren't aware of the answer. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Councillor. I think that's a really good point. We did have a very detailed report because there was a trial, intensive trial, and part of it is the distance to the the energy to waste plant. So you know they can't go there and back without, and it becomes inefficient. Okay, do I have any other questions?
Welcome, members, and congratulations, Chair, of course, as well. In section 5, there's a statement: the council vision is for all residents to have access to a charging facility within 10 minutes walk of their home. Is there a similar vision about place of work? And trying to also work out how to respond to residents who have a concern that our vision seems quite car-centric, and how alternative modes of transport should be or encouraged or fit within our overall sustainability. So, as a newbie, please let me know. Thank you.
Which is obviously for walking. While being on Monday.
Yeah, so I think a little bit broader. This paper focuses very much on electric vehicle charging and our strategy for that. So it's quite narrow in some ways as part of our overall sustainability strategy. We are planning, we hope members will be able to attend a briefing on our environmental sustainability strategy for all members. The 3rd of July, penciled in for that. So hopefully new members in particular, but for all members, we will be able to talk through and have some discussion more broadly about environmental sustainability. It's quite right, we have an active travel action plan which comes out of that sustainability strategy, which is going to Health and Wellbeing Committee. I recommend you to look at that. There's quite a lot in that. Your first question was around place of work and the 10-minute travel. We haven't explicitly got that in there. I think by the nature of our car parks, a number of them are city centre and close to people's place of work where perhaps there is no parking at work and a lot of commuters use our car parks. So that's the sort of long-term charge in the day. A lot of this is focused on charging overnight, so they've got a charge ready for the next day, which is naturally why you put it nearer their home. But equally, if you're at work for 8 or 10 hours, fully charge a vehicle.
I just wanted to add, in terms of the workplaces, we're very keen, and it's in the strategy, around encouraging businesses around the city to install charge points for their own employees, and there is government support at the moment for them to do that. So yeah, that's kind of using our role as a leader within the city. Hopefully we can encourage other businesses to install their own chargers.
Thank you.
I was wondering if there have been any work done in areas where there is flooding, if there is a solution that has been some sort of workaround that's safe. I'm thinking of car parks like Waterworks Road, in Arboretum, and then Road, places like that. Hybrid Street, yeah.
Yeah, as you said, there's a huge number of car parks that actually we had to discount. In writing the strategy, I did do some research to try and find out if there is a solution. Obviously, we're by far from the only city that is affected by flooding. I'm afraid I didn't find anything that's available at the moment in terms of a technology that is resilient to flooding, fortunately. But we'll keep that under review if there's anything that comes up.
Round.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to thank the officers for the report. It's very comprehensive and it's a joy to read. I do have one question, that given the importance of the situation we're in environmentally, I noticed that the report is due to be reviewed every 3 years. Can that not be reviewed yearly, even if only to endorse the current format of it?
Certainly, I think all of our strategies, we tend to put a review date in. I mean, we're aware that technology and environmental strategy is coming up for review. So part of that would look like, I take the point, and if things change, we'll be in the wider environment anyway. Yes.
Right, thank you. Any other questions? Can we please move to a recommendation to approve the report? The committee approves the proposed electric vehicle charging strategy. That the committee approves the committee approves the proposed electric vehicle charging strategy. I have all votes in favour. Votes against? Any absent? Much. If we can now move on to the next item, it is the annual and quarter 4 performance report. This includes the performance indicators for this committee, and I think, Lloyd, you're going to present that, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, it seems a long time since the end of March, but this report does take us back to quarter 4 of the previous financial year. And just for new members, every policy committee has a committee scorecard, and so they will include the key projects and the key performance indicators that you as a committee have oversight of throughout the course of a year. And at the end of each financial year, the policy committee also has a chance to review what those KPIs are and what those projects are. So you'll have a chance to shape the future committee scorecard for this committee. In respect of the quarter 4 scorecard for last year, the vast majority of projects we're showing is completed or on track for progress. The one that was amber was the waste and recycling collection review. Again, for new members, at the moment, we collect from every household within the city each week. But half the city receives a collection of residual waste, black bin waste, and the other half of the city receives a recycling collection. That causes some issues with resilience for the crews and particularly the management teams. So if they have an issue on recycling, half the trucks are out on residual, they can't be used to help out, and vice versa. And what we wanted to do was to reprogram that so every week it's all residual and the following week it's all recycling. It just provides resilience to the service. In consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair, we've paused the move to reintroduce that pending the government's current review around the sort of national direction on waste and recycling collection. So as many members will be aware, that review at the moment is looking at whether or not there needs to be standardisation of how councils collect waste and recycling across the country, free food collection waste or mandatory food collection waste, and free garden waste collections. It doesn't seem quite right to us at the moment to impose a change on residents within the city when perhaps in 18 months, 24 months time, there could be a further change that's imposed on us nationally through government. So again, with Chair and Vice Chair's consultation, we've paused that one and we'll amend the dates. We'll keep that review and the watchful eye, and there'll be a report that'll be brought back to this committee at some stage that will brief you on that. In respect of the key performance indicators, there are some in red. I'll just touch upon these in detail. So the percent of household waste composted, that's red for Q4. That very often shows red for Q4 because there's not much garden waste in the colder, wetter months, and the service closed down. So not to worry too much about that one. That's probably just a quirk of that KPI. It's a seasonal trend that we see each year. An unusual one for us is amber, is the number of missed collections reported by customers. So this is where a resident will ring up the council and say, "You've not collected my bin this morning." More often than not, that's because of who might have passed it, or actually we have passed the property, but the bin's not been put out. So sometimes there's a little bit of ambiguity around it. Generally our numbers are very, very low. They're in the sort of 0.00 something percent, but for this quarter, we have gone up slightly, and we'll report back on that in Q1 for you to take a look at, and hopefully we will be back into. We have a red around percentage of overflowing litter and dog waste bins dealt with in time, and the narrative within the report shows that we had some resource issues. It's not the first time this one has been amber or red, which is slightly disappointing for us as a management team, and we've picked that up with officers to make sure that we've improved that. But there was a very clear reason for it this time that we'll work on. And the other red one was environmental fixed penalty notices issued each month. So our civil enforcement officers that do parking enforcement, they also dual up and do environmental enforcement, so littering, some of the public space protection order work as well. And in the last sort of 12-18 months, we have had quite a high turnover of staff within the parking and enforcement team. And each time a new member of staff comes in, they need to be trained up. They tend to be ready to go around parking enforcement, but it's the environmental enforcement sometimes that they're less comfortable with. So there's a constant series of training being delivered, and again the narrative shows there that we have a sort of a formal type training being gathered for September. So again, we will hopefully see an upturn in performance there. So I think, Chair, I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
Okay, do I have any questions?
Thanks, Chair. I've got one point and then one question on a separate matter, if I can. I've mentioned this before at a previous meeting, which was about this percentage of household waste composted. I'm not necessarily concerned when I see this red. The reason being is because I compost everything in my house. So I don't show up on this report, and I'm one of the people that's making this red because I don't use a brown bin, because I don't need to. Everything gets composted in my house or on my allotment. So I'm just pointing out that it's not necessarily bad if we see this red circle, because if everyone does what I do, nobody needs a brown bin. And the second point is a question, really. I'm surprised with the satisfaction with street cleansing. That's red, because I'm satisfied with street cleansing when I walk around. So I wonder whether it would be useful, Chair, if we could, when we're canvassing these people as part of the annual survey, annual canvass, whatever it's called, we can get some kind of geographical link for them, because we need to know where in the city these people are unhappy with street cleansing, because I'm not where I live, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, the first point, I absolutely take Councillor Curry's comments on the first. The reason we include it as a performance indicator is that it's a national indicator. It's something we report back to DEFRA on, so we simply include it. Lovely to hear the comments from Councillor Cleary about street cleansing within his ward. That's really great. You know, we report on the number of inspections we carry out around cleanliness. They are undertaken by supervisors, so that will get reported on throughout the year. If there is a way that we can look at graphically at where that feedback from, we will. I'm not sure we are able to do that, but if we can.
Thank you. Then I've got Councillor Udall.
Equally, the residents of St John's tell me that since we made the changes a couple of years ago, street cleaning is much better than it ever used to be. Especially in the grotty areas which used to exist, it's getting better and better. So I'd like to thank the officers. It's never without criticism, but there will always be problems when they emerge. But I'm so pleased to say when they do emerge, they are resolved quickly. A quick question, and I'm asking, it's always dangerous to ask a question which you don't know the answer to. But on the issue of civil enforcement, does the issue of enforcement of property insecure against illegal entry covered within that? Because that is a statutory responsibility of the local authority to manage, and I'm not sure how we do manage that process and whether there is a satisfaction criteria involved.
Again, thanks to Councillor Udall for his comments about cleanliness. The second point, you've got two environmental health officers sat on the front of this table, so we're well aware of open to trespass legislation. That's dealt with by our housing team and not by our civil enforcement officers. So it wouldn't show up as part of this scorecard.
Not all property insecure is housing, though, is it?
Unless there was criteria to be met, that could be a range of organisations getting involved. It could be the fire service, it could be us, but it wouldn't show up. It wouldn't show up on this scorecard.
I think I need to have a discussion.
Do I have any other questions? Okay, I've just got one comment, and it's about the measure that we've got, which is the percentage of poor grass maintenance cleared within time. We're actually going to look at amending that to be about grass maintenance, in that I'm very aware that we're actually now getting some complaints that grass is being cut cheaply, rather than just it hasn't been cut, and we need to differentiate between that, and so we're going to add a narrative to explain how many people have complained about, because that relates to what all right, okay, thank you. So I move to a recommendation that the Environment Committee notes the Council's Q4 and annual performance report for 2022-23. Do I have any votes in favour, please? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Do we have any other business? No. Okay, then that's the meeting closed. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming along. Well, Councillor Roberts, I came here by bike. I think some people walk. It's down to councillors how they choose to travel.
Yeah,
legally we're not allowed
Chair,
to.
legally we aren't. We must meet in person. So unless legislation changes, then we have no option.
to reflect on it and see if there's a way, not of finding out why we can't do it, but how we might do it.
It's legal from the government that we have